welcome to the Western Voice. I'm Cory Morgan. Western alienation, this is something that's just been going on since the beginning of Confederation in Western Canada. There's a lot of discontent out here. And something that's been happening lately, though, support for outright secession is at all-time highs. Some recent polling has shown it to be between 25 and 30% in Alberta, depending on the circumstances. I mean, it has its ebbs and flows. At times it'll be high after an election when people are enraged or after a particular policy. But something that's different this time is it's well between elections, and there's no one specific thing that's got the discontent at such a high out here right now. We're going into what looks like another federal election this year, and Albertans likely aren't going to be very happy with a re-election of Trudeau unless some things change very dramatically. So I spoke with Josh Andrus. He's with Project Confederation. It's an organization that's trying to address the Western alienation. They don't want to go after the separation nuclear option. They're actually proposing some things perhaps we can do so that people don't feel that's the only route left, and so that separation doesn't actually happen. They're putting forth things such as the Fair Deal panel recommendations, which talk about things like a provincial police force, provincial pension, things that other provinces do, and Albertans are always kind of given crap for when we talk about doing them for some reason. Again, it demonstrates a bit of that double standard. They're also talking about opening that can of worms of constitutional reform, but that might possibly be the only thing that might quell this just growing Western discontent, because we seem to be stuck in a status quo and can't seem to get out of it for reform or change, and how to make the West feel content within Canada as it stands. So it was a great conversation, and some proactive initiatives being put forth by Project Confederation. We'll see if they can stem off what seems to be an inevitably growing support for Western secession. All right, well, thank you very much for joining me, Josh. It's a pressing issue as we're going into what's probably going to be a federal election year, and we got a whole lot of crabby Westerners out here. We're probably going to get even crabbier as things move along. So Project Confederation, it's definitely talking about the regional issues and the things going on in the West and discontent. But I might as well start. Are you guys pursuing Western independence or promoting that sort of option?
There's two ways to answer that question. I mean, independence can be defined in multiple ways. You can be independent within the country or independent outside of it. So, but in terms of Project Confederation, we actually don't have a defined position on separation, which is the actual act of leaving the country. We've done that for multiple reasons. First of all, about 50% of our support comes from people who are frustrated with the current state of affairs in Confederation, but aren't quite ready to, pull the plug. And they view our proposals as steps in the direction to alleviating some of that pressure. And then on the other hand, we have a tremendous amount of support and occasional frustration from separatists themselves, who believe that the proposals that we are proposing are steps in the right direction to that intended goal. And the other side of it too is support for separation itself. I think the most recent Western Standard Main Street poll pegged it at 25%. That's independent of the rest of the country or the other four Western provinces leaving. So it's not something we're prepared to go down. But at the end of the day, most people agree that the path to actually exiting the country goes through the Fair Deal. That if we go to Ottawa and we try and get a fair deal and we actually do an honest effort and give it our all and stand up and fight for what we believe in, and then we get told to, where the exit is and how to get there, that's going to boil things over. But at the end of the day, we actually have to go through the steps, go through the process. You can't just go from point A to point B without, actually trying to get this done and make it clear that either we're in or we're out.
Yeah, well, it's definitely a spectrum where people are sitting at. Some people want out yesterday, and nothing shy of that's going to satisfy them. And then there's others who are reticent, saying, well, if we run out of every other options, that's where I'll go, and everything in between. Of course, some people are saying, absolutely, that's never going to be a consideration, and that's not what we want to do. But before we get into the fair deal stuff and such, and its proposals, so what are the problems facing the West? What is causing this general discontent and annoyance with the system and with Ottawa right now?
Well, yeah, I mean, it probably all started back. Well, I mean, it's been going on since 1905. You could even date back to when Rupert's Land was purchased by the Dominion of Canada in 1867. It was purchased as a way to mine the resources from the at the time uninhabited lands to pay for the well, not revolution, but industrialization of Canada as they headed into a new country, and having coast to coast land rights was crucial because of the at the time feared expansionism of the United States. So immediately as the West became settled, it became clear that being a territory wasn't acceptable. The reason that Alberta and Saskatchewan became a province in 1905 was due to pressures from the territorial government at the time, led by Frederick Haltain. I think it was over the railroads actually and land rights. So that it was an issue that the federal government was, I can't remember the details, but there was an issue there. And then we fought to become a province. At the time, the prime minister was Wilfrid Laurier. Wilfrid Laurier had decided that as opposed to having one block province that contains the current Alberta and Saskatchewan, that they would have two provinces, because having one massive Anglo-speaking province would be make it difficult for Quebec to have its way. And then it's gone on. I mean, you could talk about the National Energy Program under Trudeau. I mean, this has been a consistent issue where people out west are alienated. And one of the major issues, or one of the major things that I do want to comment on, that I don't think it's like malice out of the east. I think it's more just a structural issue. The west, especially in Alberta where I'm based, we only have 34 seats in the House of Commons. Ontario and Quebec combined have 199, and Alberta, through equalization and various other transfer programs, has been paying a pretty heavy amount of the bills for the rest of the country. So it's almost, well, it is, it's essentially taxation without representation, and people out here, they're tired of it. They want equal footing, and to not be taken advantage of, as we have for effectively our entire history.
Yeah, well, and it's a frustration for the most part. We don't have a problem with the people of Eastern Canada. We have a problem with the system,
Yeah,
and it should be distinguished. I mean, heads get hot, and sometimes insults get flung back and forth. But on a one-on-one, most of us have family in the East or came from the East, or
yeah.
many things. It's not a loathing on that level or anything, but there's a frustration. The West has been used as the resource basket to draw from, but it's kind of patronizing attitude when we start to say, hey, we want to speak for ourselves. So you spoke of the fair deal, and I imagine that's related to the fair deal panel that was struck by the United Conservative Party under Jason Kenney to look into things with Western alienation and how to address them. So which aspects of that do you think are achievable and that you guys are promoting and pushing?
Well, we think it's all achievable. It's just a matter of getting a government on board and getting like we need a fair, like we need a better deal. We need better treatment. We've got two major planks, if you want to call it that. The first plank is the firewall, in which we take a lot of provincial responsibility for a lot of things that are not under provincial jurisdiction, from police force to pension plan, having an immigration system that Alberta can control, replacing the Canada Health and Social Transfer with series of tax points, as well as the other one would be constitutional. And that's one where we need the provincial government to really step up to the plate and push for. And the constitutional issues does deal with the representation issue. We fight for what's called the Tripoli Senate. Now, the Tripoli Senate was something that the Reform Party was founded on. It was essential to the Reform Party and in its early days, and that is an equal number of senators per province, effective effective powers, so that they can act as a check on Parliament, and that's elected so that they have some accountability to the public. So that's probably one of the major issues, as well as equalization. And we touched on that over the last, since 1957, Alberta has contributed over $611 billion to the rest of the country and seen none of it back. And that's something that if the federal government's going to come down on our energy industry like they have with Bill C-69 and Bill C-38, and the carbon tax and everything else, that, you know, if we can't actually defend ourselves. So as we head into year 6 of one of the most devastating recessions that this province has ever faced, it's vital to the rest of the country to understand the plight that we're in here. I know kids my age that I went to school with that have university degrees that they can't find jobs because, you know, they're going in and they're competing with people who are, you know, 30 years of experience in the energy industry or various industries that are also looking for work because our economy is in such devastating shape. So, I mean, it's one of those things where the frustration that people are feeling, I understand it. And it's important that, you know, we can't just give up, because I don't, things can get worse, as bad as that sounds. So,
Yeah, no, and it's frustrating. I mean, we're in economic hard times. We have been for some time now. We personally, anyways, I think the attitude of Westerners quite often isn't that we want Ottawa to come in and help us. We just want them to leave us alone, and we will help ourselves. Quit shutting in our industries, quit shutting in our efforts to do things, and we'll take care of it. But they just can't seem to stop themselves. I know recently Jason Kenney announced a big plastics recycling plan for Alberta, and Justin Trudeau jumped in there and said, no, 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 because we're going to ban all those anyways. So quit
mhm.
wasting your time. It's like playing whack-a-mole. Any effort we make to, you know, get independent just financially, and they seem to knock us down. Opening up the constitutional bag of worms, though, I mean, Meech Lake and Charlottetown were tried for very similar reasons. I mean, this is an old constitution. The country has changed a lot since it was drafted. It really could use some fixing, but those failed. Uh, how do you think it can be approached that perhaps people in the whole, because you need the whole country on board to change this constitution, what would make it palatable to the whole country, or at least enough of it to do something?
At the end of the day, it comes down to money. Like, I think a lot of the ways with Meech Lake and Charlottetown, it was kind of cultural in a sense, where we were talking about, you know, bilingualism and things like that. And this is a purely economic argument. I mean, the energy industry in itself is the engine that powers every other industry in the economy. Without affordable energy, or reliable energy for that matter, you can't have prosperity, you can't have growth. If you look at one of the major advantages that Western societies have had over, you know, some of the less developed parts of the world, it's our access to reliable and affordable energy. I mean, if you look at the technology that we have and the innovations that we have, they all come from a place where, you know, electricity is cheap, right? I mean, we wouldn't have the internet if, you know, our electricity bills in the 80s were, you know, exorbitantly high, as we seem to be focused on, you know, saving the climate at that expense. So, I mean, it comes down to, you know, it is an economic argument. And for the East to thrive, the West needs to survive. And I don't want that to be the talking point, but that's kind of where we're at right now, where it comes down to prosperity of Canada and our living standards across the country. And for years, we've been taken for granted. If you ask the average Torontonian to pick Calgary out on a map, they probably couldn't do it. And it's just, I don't want to call it ignorance, but it is. I feel sometimes like we're fighting against, you know, a bunch of people who think they're in the center of the universe, that think everything outside of the Toronto metropolitan area is the environment. And there's people out here that have livelihoods and have jobs, and we're the ones that are powering this country. All we want is the rest of the country to get off her back, and some reassurance that we can protect ourselves in the case that we get a federal government that is trying to dictate to the West what we can do and what we can't do, like with the plastics plant, or, you know, the continuously moving goalposts on pipeline development. I mean, like, how are you supposed to develop a pipeline if you don't know what the rules are going to be tomorrow? It's, to me, it seems to be deliberate. And it's not on the average citizen, it's on the government. I think Ronald Reagan said it best when he said, the words that you fear the most in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. And that's kind of the way I feel right now.
Yeah, well, and a lot of it could come down to just, I mean, there's emotions involved and just a feeling of respect, and we do feel like we're disrespected. That, you know, if you want to
Mhm.
calm down Westerners, step one, just start taking us seriously. we're not just jumping up and down without cause or because we're backwards hillbillies or something. We're frustrated. We're sitting on a resource, as you said. Energy power is everything. It impacts your cost of living for everything. We sit here with constantly being beaten on for our evil tar sands, as they like to label it, while Saudi Arabian tankers keep going up and down the St. Lawrence River to feed Ontario and Quebec's energy needs. This is something, again, we feel stepped on and frustrated. So I appreciate the work you guys are doing, I guess, to go out and try and get that respect before it comes to the head where, that those support numbers for secession are going to pass that 25-30% range and become a true constitutional or I guess unity crisis in the entire nation, because we're really moving towards that direction. So where can people find more information on what you guys have been doing and how to support you guys and see what you're up to in the future here?
Our website's quite easy. It's just projectconfederation.ca. Just go, if you want to sign up to our mailing list, go up and click subscribe. If you've got the resources and want to help us financially, we do accept donations. So there's also a donation link. And if you want to get in touch with us directly, the email is info@projectconfederation.ca. And so basically we could use all the help we can get. So come in, sign up, and we'll go from there.
Well, great. Well, thank you very much for talking with me, Josh. We'll be watching closely, and I'm sure we'll be speaking again on these issues soon.
Perfect. Well, thanks for having me, and it's an honor to be on your show.
Great. Thanks. So Western secession, I mean, it doesn't have to be an inevitability, but we've got some very big changes that need to be made to make Westerners start feeling comfortable within Confederation again, because this trend is just continuing to grow. And with the federal election coming and in these volatile times, I guess time will tell. But Josh and the others at Project Confederation are seeing what they can do and proposing things to reconfigure Confederation into a more modern form where we can work in a diverse environment like that and perhaps stay together as one nation. Time will tell. Another volatility these days is social media and media in general. So be sure to go to thepostmillennial.com and sign up for a subscription for the email updates, because you never know when a platform might be robbed and we might not be able to reach directly out to you. So it's very important to sign up online, support alternative media. The mainstream media isn't covering the important issues. The Post Millennial is, and will continue to. So thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to talking to you next week.